All right, let's be serious here. There is a very good chance that a fair number of us could be homeless in the very near future. We need to deal with this. This is my proposal. Wherever you are, wherever you be, let's begin by helping the homeless now. If we help the homeless now and we're not out on the street yet, then we're in a position to make things a whole lot better, not just for the homeless, but for where we may be. When I say we, I mean me, I mean all of us. You see, right now there is a moratorium on evictions that's been going on since earlier in this year. Landlords, in some cases, have gone for months and months without rent and have been unable to evict their tenants. This is humane. This is the right thing to do. However, the landlords are not happy. They want their money. There's some cases where they are caught between a rock and a hard place. They can't demand money for their tenants, but also they are stuck having to pay off a mortgage. There has been a bit of a relief for mortgages as well as a result of all of this, which honestly is fine. Okay, if you were to ask me what we should be doing right now, we should be bailing out the tenants and then bailing out the landlords, and the people who'd be left holding the bag are the banks with the mortgages, because guess what? We bailed them out in 2008. We bailed them out over and over again. It's time for the banks to take a hit and bail out the country. Just saying. Because if they don't, we're going to have a homelessness crisis of unequal proportions on our hands. The 1930s, if things go the way that they may, I mean, who knows? It could make it look like a walk in the park. So let's talk about how we're going to deal with this. So begin by helping the homeless in your area, not by charity. I mean, charity's fine, okay, but that's not what we're trying to do. We want to make a change here. The change that needs to be made is that we need to understand that being homeless is not a crime, that it is something that does not need to be dealt with first and foremost by police. Now, if a homeless person is committing a crime, yes, police. But if the only thing going on is that they're being homeless, then their first point of contact should not be police. So, what we need to do is we need to have some of the money that is going into the local police, wherever you are, needs to go into hiring a community liaison, somebody who is a social worker, somebody who is qualified to work with mental health. People have mental health issues, because let's be honest, that is a lot of what's going on, but not the only thing. We need to hire somebody like that to be the first point of contact. The reason why we need to do this is because if we can create a place, areas that are safe for people now, then they will be safer for you later if that's where you end up. But let's also talk about how to develop a good homeless community in your area, all right? Because let's be honest, okay? We have a completely failed mental health system. We have a lot of people who probably should be getting mental health care who are not, who are on the streets instead. This is not helpful to anyone. It is not helpful to the community that they end up in. It is not helpful to the person. It is yet another failure in this country, but it is simply needs to be stated that without there being any stigma against people being homeless, that there are a number of people who are homeless who ended up in that situation because there was no other help for them, and they honestly need help. Now that's just the mental help, and I hate to say it, but that is not the kind of thing we're going to be talking about here. It would be nice if we had a mental health professional who could put them into a system that would take care of them, but let's be honest, a community liaison officer can only do so much. Okay, they can try and find a system for somebody who needs mental health care, but the mental health care in the system is so far lacking that it wouldn't be an answer. It wouldn't really be a solution. So what you want to do as a stopgap measure is you want to attract the very best homeless people to your community, because there are very good homeless people to have around. I used to know a guy by the name of Randy who was enough a part of his community that he ran for city council. So yeah, he didn't win, but he was a viable candidate. This is the thing. When we attract a good homeless community, then it also makes it so that if we ourselves end up in that community, it can be a safer place for us to be. Now, what makes a good homeless community? Well, first of all, it needs to be a community in and of itself. It needs to be one that is, I mean, homeless people are transient. It is the nature of it, but it needs to be one that has enough stability that it has a sense of continuity to it. And that is certainly one of the big things that's going to help build a community. In order to do that, it helps to have an area where, let's be honest, homeless people want to be. So if you're taking care of your homeless people, if they're being fed, if you're in an area where there is housing, where there's appropriate social programs, those are going to make a difference. If you live in a warm area versus a cold area, that is also going to make a difference in having a fair number of homeless people around. So you're attractive. Now you're attracted to homeless people. Now, ideally, though, you can turn this, as community, can turn this into a situation where you have the good homeless people who are competing for resources with the, shall we say, less desirable homeless people. Now, what I say by good homeless people, I mean people who appreciate the community that they are in. All right? So, as I say, any number of reasons why a person could be homeless, but if they are there to add to the community. For example, there's somebody who plays music, okay, on the streets. It doesn't get aggressive and just has a little pan down, like people throw money in the pot. If they're not nasty songs, if they're not a nasty, dirty person, if they are adding something to the community, we should be encouraging that. At the same time, there's a lot of homeless people who make things. I knew a guy back in Oregon who would take little bits of walnut and slice them into thin pieces and, to show off the inside of the walnut. That's all it was. But he'd polish them up and they were cool looking, and he would sell those for just a couple of bucks. And it was not panhandling. It was being a part of the community. It was offering something back. Now, admittedly, not everybody wants a slice of walnut. Not everybody's going to be liking the things that the homeless people are selling. And admittedly, you have homeless people who are like, buy my stuff. And you have homeless people like, you listen to my music, you need to give me money. Those are not the people you want, okay? Those people who either think they're entitled, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. But what you really want is you want people who want to give back to the community and want to be part of the community. Because when, like, say, for example, in the town that I live in, it's a tourist town. Now, it's very easy to say, oh, well, those homeless people are going to scare the tourists off. Or you can look at it another way. You can say those homeless people are going to offer something to the tourists. They're going to offer them music. They're going to offer them, little trinkets and that kind of thing. Souvenirs for the town that are unique, that you can't get anywhere else. And if you have that, then you have the, as I call them, the good homeless people, saying to the undesirable homeless people, hey, when you go up and you act like a jerk to that person, you have just messed up, my sale, everything that I'm doing here. And that's the thing, is that panhandling, all of these things, you get homeless people who are, but no, really, let's be honest. Asking for money and getting it, that's all about goodwill. That's all about a good interaction with people. And so you want to have that. And you have a huge number of homeless people who understand that that's the way you do it. That's the way you get along with survival. You don't be a jerk. And the more you have that, and the more you have that understanding amongst people, the more you'll have people going, wait, no, you're doing it the wrong way. Don't you get it? That's not what we do here. And one other note on all this. I proposed at the beginning that we have a community liaison instead of to deal with homeless people as first point of contact rather than the police. Well, what if all of that, they also say to them, look, this community, we provide shelter, we provide food, we encourage you to be a part of the community. If you're going to be a part of the community, we welcome you as a part of the community. But if you're not going to be part of the community, then remember that we're going to treat you just like every other place treats you. And you make it clear that there is sort of a social contract going on. There's a give and there's a take. And that if you're in a community that has the heart, that has the ability to give to homeless people, then you say to them, this is a situation where you need to give back. And you need to give back by policing yourselves, by taking care of the things that you can take care of in your community. And also, when there's a problem, don't let it become a huge problem. There's a community liaison. Come to the people here and say, let's make it better. Let's fix it. Let's deal with the problem that we have now before it becomes an issue. If we have that, then we have a whole lot more ability for, well, the larger community to be like, wow, okay, homelessness is a thing, but it's not a problem. Or at least the people are not a problem, let's be honest. Homelessness is a real problem. But, you get the business owners so they're not putting out signs saying, don't contribute to the problem. Panhandling just makes, giving money to panhandlers just makes it worse. By the way, never went into those businesses. But seriously, we're about to be in a situation where it could be any number of us that are going to need that kind of help. What kind of community do we want to go into if that's where we end up? What kind of community do we want to have around us, even if that's not where we end up? Because let's be really honest, even if you're not about to end up homeless, there's a lot of people who are. So what we can do is we can make our communities places that attract homeless people that are part of our community, that make things better. And all we really have to do for that is show just a small amount of compassion.